Language value.
Let's go ahead.
Good morning, and welcome to our oversight hearing on the value of education for veterans in public, private, for-profit colleges and universities. We've got a little bit of a disrupted schedule this morning. I apologize. As you know, we had votes that started about 9:40 this morning. We just wrapped up a few minutes ago. Some people are still making their way over from the floor to the hearing room. I want to take a point of personal privilege for a moment and introduce my wife, Gina. Gina, would you stand up? She and I were going to celebrate our 35th anniversary on Monday, and she was either going to have to spend it apart or with me, so she came up here with me. We will, whenever ranking member Takano arrives, we will give him a chance to make his comments, but in the interest of everybody's time and patience, we're going to go ahead and move forward. Also, we are going to have another round of votes called about 12:20. My suspicion is we won't have many people coming back after that, but we will do our best. So let me begin. There are many ways to define the word value. Merriam-Webster's dictionary offers several ways, including 1, a fair return or equivalent value in goods, services. 2, money for something exchanged. 3, the monetary worth of something. Or 4, the relative worth, utility, police all sectors of higher education. In fact, Section 3696 of Title 38 requires the VA and the FTC to enter into an agreement on investigating allegations of unethical practices by any school, regardless of the sector. I believe that requirement has been in place for decades, and it is my understanding that the interagency agreement is not yet in place today. The only conclusion I can draw is that multiple government agencies at all levels have failed to monitor the education industry and enforce the statutes and regulations now in place. In closing, I hope that this will be a positive and informative hearing that will explore the value each sector of our education industry brings to the table. We're not going to be able to recognize the distinguished member until he gets in. But before we proceed, I would ask unanimous consent to enter testimony from the College Board, the National Association of Veterans Program Administrators, the Reserve Officers Association, and the Wounded Warrior Project in the hearing record. Hearing no objection, so ordered. Also understand that Mr. ORourke would like to join us, and so I would ask unanimous consent for him to join us at the dais. Hearing no objection, that's so ordered. With us today on the first panel is Dr. Michael Smith from the University of Texas, El Paso, Dr. Cynthia Azari from Riverside Community College, and Mr. Michael Dakdug from the Student Veterans of America. So I'd like to invite you to join us at the table. Dr. Azari was going to be introduced by Ranking Member Takano, so we may have a little bit of a disruption where we come back and introduce you. That said, we're going to recognize you for 5 minutes at this point.
Mr. Chairman, members of the subcommittee, thank you for inviting me today to testify today regarding veteran services and programs at public colleges. My name is Cynthia Azari. I am president of Riverside City College, which is located in the Inland Empire of Southern California, a region that includes March Air Reserve Base, home to the Air Force Reserve Command's largest utility wing, and units from the Army Reserve, Navy Reserve, Marine Corps Reserve, and Air National Guard. Riverside City College and its sister institutions, Moreno Valley College and Norco College, are each fully accredited by the Western Association of Schools and Colleges and part of the Riverside Community College District. Historically one of California's fastest growing regions, the Inland Empire was hit hard during the national recession, which resulted in significant loss of jobs. This followed an earlier sustained period of blue and white collar unemployment due to the BRAC realignments in Southern California. Today, we still have the highest level of unemployment in the nation, and nearly 150,000 veterans reside in Riverside County. The region's college-going rate is about 24 to 26%, well below the state and national average. In 2012, our enrollments exceeded 33,000 students per semester. California community colleges have no local authority to set tuition rates, with the exception of non-resident tuition, which is set at the lowest rate allowed. Tuition levels are mandated by the state of California. Currently, that tuition is $46 per credit, which is lower than most, if not all, 49 states. Still, college access and affordability is a problem for the majority of our students. More than 60% qualify for need-based financial aid. Having given you the brief overview of our district, I would like to turn to the subject at hand, our veterans. Some 1,200 veterans attend our 3 colleges each semester, roughly 3.5% of our district's total enrollment. It doesn't seem like a lot of students, but at a community college, every student is important. For many, we are the first, the last, and the best chance for success. Being open to all, we are expected to serve all, and we take that responsibility seriously. Veterans come to us with all the challenges faced by other students: academic unpreparedness, a lack of a family tradition of college, financial and other difficulties. Therefore, community colleges must serve veterans differently. That means new programs and services and even rethinking the basics, such as how do veterans effectively transition into civilian and college life. I'm proud to say that at Riverside City College and the district, we are advancing strongly on this front. Our colleges have developed several programs and services to better serve our students. For example, all 3 of our colleges are authorized to certify veterans to receive benefits. Each college has Veterans a Resource Center to assist our students with VA education benefits and guidelines. Orientations are specifically designed for veterans. We have a veteran-friendly college guidance course, and we are developing a Boots to Books guidance class. Every student veteran receives a student veteran education plan, priority registration, priority transcript assessment, and processing. The district maintains a disabled veteran service program. We have a full-time veteran services coordinator and counselors, as well as a financial aid liaison. Each college has a veterans club, and we are developing a veterans serving veterans mentor program. We hold an annual 5K veterans run and other activities for our veteran students. One of the ways we help our student veterans is through scholarships and seeking external resources beyond state funding. Last year, our foundation received a $1.5 million endowed estate gift from a U.S. Navy veteran and his wife, specifically to provide scholarships for student veterans for books, equipment, and other expenses. Over the last 3 years, our colleges have secured 43 competitive federal grants totaling $34.6 million. Among those is a $1 million grant that directly helps our disabled veterans. Having comprehensive support services and programs for student veterans provides a strong foundation. But if they are unaware of these programs and services, few concrete results rise from that foundation. We applaud the efforts of Congress and the White House to ensure that veteran students have access to the best and most comprehensive information available so they can make informed decisions. We believe a couple of additional steps could help improve the flow of information and the experience of student veterans. For one, refine the VA benefits portal to allow colleges and universities to directly input veteran-specific information, adapt the VMET, Verification of Military Experience and Training Program, change the VRAP, the Veterans Retraining Assistance Program, by extending benefits from 1 year to 2 years, increase the federal grant opportunities. What is desperately needed is funding mechanisms similar to Title V grants, and pass H.R. 331, authored by Subcommittee Ranking Member Mark Takano and Congressman Ken Calvert. That concludes my testimony. On behalf of Riverside City College and Riverside Community College District, I would like to thank the members of the subcommittee for giving me the opportunity to speak today. It has been a great honor. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Azari. And now that Ranking Member Takano's here, I'd like to recognize him for his opening comments. And also, again, as I said earlier, we're going to do this in a little bit of an odd order, and we're going to have him introduce you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the courtesy you've extended to me. We had our votes this morning that disrupted our original schedule. So we had 14 votes on amendments. Thank you for the opportunity to introduce Cynthia Azari, who's already given her testimony. She's the president at Riverside City College and the chancellor designee of the Riverside Community College District. Dr. Azari's 30-year career has brought success in the form of meaningful employment and self-fulfillment to the lives of tens of thousands of veterans from diverse backgrounds. I've requested that Dr. Azari come to testify at our hearing so she could provide her unique insight based on her great experience and leadership of community colleges in 4 states. Dr. Azari has shown a great commitment to all her students and their children, which includes students from the March Air Reserve Base in my district. She leads the strategic planning and institutional effectiveness initiatives focusing on the needs of student veterans in the Riverside Community College District. Her experience can also help us understand the impact of H.R. 4057, the Improving Transparency of Education Opportunities for Veteran Act of 2012. Now called Public Law 112-249 and Executive Order 13607 from the President. I am familiar with the very good work being done by RCCD because I've been a community college trustee for that district for 23 years and have served as president of the board 5 times. I'm delighted that Dr. Azari could join us today. I'm happy to extend a warm welcome to her, and I also just want to add that one of the wonderful part of her narrative is your beginnings as the daughter of farm workers and your rise through education as the great American equalizer, the great American opportunity to pursue the American dream. And so I'm pleased to welcome you here to the halls of Congress. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Takano. And now I'd like to recognize my friend and colleague from Texas, Mr. O'Rourke, for an introduction of our fellow Texan, Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Chairman Flores and Ranking Member Takano, for the opportunity to sit on this committee today with you, and for the opportunity also to introduce Dr. Smith and to talk about the good work that he's doing along with his colleagues and President Natalicio at the University of Texas at El Paso. It's an institution that I am very proud and honored to represent in Congress. It's a place that's transforming lives in our community, giving people who otherwise would not have an opportunity the chance to succeed, to become more productive, and to not only better their lives, but to better the community that we serve. In fact, UT El Paso, or UTEP, was ranked #1 in the nation in social mobility recently. 64% of our students at UTEP receive Pell Grants. It is one of the largest minority-serving institutions in the country, and Dr. Smith, as the Vice Provost for Strategic Academic Initiatives at UTEP, has been a big part of that success. He also oversees UTEP's Military Student Success Center and handles issues related to military and veterans educational benefits and outreach to Fort Bliss. And Fort Bliss, that now has 33,000 active duty soldiers, complements the almost 80,000 veterans who already live in El Paso. So you can understand what an important issue this is for us in El Paso and how transformative UTEP is and can potentially be going forward for our active duty and veterans population. Dr. Smith was recently named the director of the National Center for Border Security and Immigration, and I'm looking forward to hearing his testimony today and want to welcome him to Washington, D.C. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. O'Rourke. Dr. Smith, you're recognized for 5 minutes, and in my review of your testimony, I was very impressed with what you've done at UTEP, and I look forward to you telling the rest of the hearing today.
And distinguished members of the Subcommittee on Economic Opportunity of the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, my name is Mike Smith, and I serve as Vice Provost for Strategic Academic Initiatives at the University of Texas at El Paso. It is my great honor to appear before this House Subcommittee to testify on the value of education for veterans at public, private, and for-profit colleges and universities. On behalf of UTEP, I would like to thank you for this opportunity to be with you today. The University of Texas at El Paso is deeply committed to the success of our military-affiliated students and to providing them with outstanding value in pursuit of their post-secondary educational goals. UTEP has a deep and long-standing connection with the United States military. Indeed, UTEP was founded on the grounds of the Fort Bliss Military Institute in 1914 and has shared the city of El Paso with Fort Bliss ever since. The University of Texas at El Paso honors the service and sacrifice of our more than 1,500 military-affiliated students, who include approximately 175 active duty service members, 650 veterans, and 500 military children and spouses. The University of Texas at El Paso is a comprehensive research university of more than 23,000 students. Mirroring the population of the El Paso region, from which 83% of its students come, 77% of UTEP students are Hispanic, and nearly 50% of its undergraduates report a family income of $20,000 or less. Despite the socioeconomic challenges of the region, UTEP has found ways to provide both access and excellence for its students. Over the past decade, for example, degree completions have grown dramatically at UTEP, with an 85% increase in undergraduate degrees awarded over the last decade. As a result, UTEP now consistently ranks among the top 3 universities nationally in the number of Hispanic graduates per year in nearly every disciplinary area. UTEP's success in serving as a catalyst for human and economic development and quality of life in the region also has earned it a place in the national spotlight as a model 21st century research university with a firm commitment to access and excellence. As Congressman noted, in last year's Washington Monthly Magazine rankings, UTEP was ranked #1 among all U.S. universities for our success in enabling students from all backgrounds and cultures to achieve the American dream. Providing U.S. military personnel and veterans with the ability to achieve academic, professional, and career success is likewise integral to the mission of UTEP. UTEP's military-affiliated student population has grown by more than 120% in the last 5 years, from 713 students in the fall of 2008 to more than 1,500 students today. UTEP is providing national leadership in military education by facilitating the transferability of credits by service members. The university recently received a $1 million planning grant from the Kresge Foundation to create a network of public universities across the country that will ease the transferability of college credits. Members of the AIMS network will eventually enter into articulation agreements that will recognize credits earned at partner institutions and seamlessly transfer them to a university in the network that is close by a service member's duty station. UTEP is honored to serve its military-affiliated students as they and their families have served the nation. Today, I've been asked to review progress in implementing the provisions of House Bill 4057, now Public Law 112-249, as well as the provisions of Executive Order 13607. One challenge for universities in complying with Executive Order 13607 is to create automated processes for integrating various electronic data systems in order to produce individual student-level estimates of costs and debt as required by the Principles of Excellence. Every military-affiliated student comes to a university with a unique set of variables that affects how much the student can expect to pay for a degree and what the student's financial aid profile may look like. I am pleased to report that UTEP will formally adopt the Principles of Excellence in the very near future. We are in the final stages of integrating our student records and financial aid systems with the Department of Education student shopping sheet in order to provide our military-affiliated students with a customized, clear, and easily understood estimate of their tuition, fees, Title IV financial aid, and VA benefits or military tuition assistance. Regarding Public Law 112-249, the Veteran Benefits Administration recently released its report to Congress in which it makes several policy recommendations for implementing this new statute. Although the statute is new and its implementation is still evolving, I would like to comment on its provision for reporting student and state approving agency feedback on quality of instruction, recruiting practices, and post-graduation employment placement. Student feedback is certainly helpful and may aid students in making comparisons among institutions. I respectfully recommend that the Veterans Benefit Administration develop a standardized set of metrics for reporting student feedback in all areas identified in the statute. Across the nation, state-supported universities have responded to the pressures of increasing costs in higher education by reducing student services, increasing class sizes and teaching loads, and the like. UTEP is proud to work diligently to keep its tuition and fees affordable while maintaining its commitment to high-quality instruction and cutting-edge research. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity.
Dr. Smith, thank you for your testimony. We'll look forward to questions in a minute. Mr. Dakdick, welcome back to the Economic Opportunity Subcommittee, and you are recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman and Ranking Member Takano, and members of the subcommittee, for inviting Student Veterans of America to address the subcommittee on this specific topic. Immediately following the implementation of the post-9/11 GI Bill in 2009, Student Veterans of America began working on changing the landscape of higher education to be more supportive of veterans, service members, and their families. Our organization, which began on only 20 campuses a short 5 years ago, now spans over 850 college campuses and universities in all 50 states. I have personally traveled to over half the country, visiting university and college leaders on over 150 campuses to witness firsthand the support or lack thereof being provided to student veterans. I wasn't able to travel to to the folks to my right, to their campuses, but I look forward to doing that in the near future. One of my more recent trips includes a visit to the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, where I accompanied Secretary Shinseki on a visit with President Tom Ross, who presides over the UNC system, which is a coalition of 16 campuses throughout the state of North Carolina. The purpose of this visit was to learn more about how UNC was serving veterans, service members, and their families. In my travels to places like UNC and 27 other states, I've come to find many common themes on best practices for serving the student veteran population. Best practices range from creating a veteran center on campus to providing residency waivers so veterans can maximize their GI Bill at the in-state tuition rate. Many of these best practices are captured in 3 separate publications. First is the American Council on Education's Toolkit for Veteran-Friendly Institutions, which is a compilation of veteran support and best practices from colleges and universities nationwide. Any college or university leader can upload their program or initiative onto the website for public viewing at vetfriendlytoolkit.org. Second is the Association of Private Sector Colleges and Universities, which you'll hear from Mr. Steve Gunderson on the second panel. They commissioned a task force to identify military and veteran best practices for supporting student veterans and service members. That report was published earlier this year. Finally, Operation College Promise, a program created by the New Jersey Association of State Colleges and Universities, developed a field guide on how to best support veterans on campus. It was published last year. All of these initiatives are absolutely critical for supporting the successful transition of our veterans to and through America's higher education system. However, little quantifiable evidence exists, at least nationally, as to how successful veterans are academically and what specific programs or initiatives lead to higher success rates. A key component of Executive Order 13607 is the call to track student-veteran academic success rates, utilizing existing administration data. However, current weaknesses in federal databases and national surveys to track and define student-veteran academic outcomes have resulted in several conflicting reports. Some media reports have claimed that the student-veteran dropout rate may be as high as 88%. That was a poorly cited statistic that SVA quickly dispelled. In contrast, national surveys conducted by the government suggest completion rates may be as high as 68% for military veterans. The wide range of reported completion and dropout rates has led to confusion regarding student veterans' post-secondary academic success. To gain a better understanding of student-veteran post-secondary completion rates, Student Veterans of America brokered a partnership between the Department of Veterans Affairs and the National Student Clearinghouse, a nonprofit organization with enrollment data on over 95% of America's student population, to create and develop a student-veteran attainment database. SVA expects to initially report on the completion rate of approximately 1 million veterans that have used various forms of the GI Bill between 2002 and 2010. We expect to see some results at the end of this year. The attainment database is a vital first step to accurately identifying, tracking, and measuring student-veteran post-secondary completion rates. In addition, it will provide the foundation for future research, such as student veterans' persistence and identifying critical times where student veterans are more likely to withdraw from college. We can also identify programs and policies that promote student-veteran persistence and completion and help colleges and universities struggling to support student veterans. Mr. Chairman, it is absolutely critical that we define the success of veterans in higher education so we can make data-driven decisions on programs and initiatives that lead to greater student-veteran success. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Duck. I want to start my questioning with and I thank all of you for your testimony. I'll start with the questions. The first question is for Mr. Duck of Student Veterans of America. You referenced the problem that we've seen as policymakers, that you have different databases out there and different reports that give us different answers. And so while I applaud you for your decision to have a partnership with the National Student Clearinghouse to develop a better database and to track veteran student outcomes, I'm still worried about the conflicting data that we're going to have out there. And so my question for you would be, what should policymakers do to try to avoid relying on disparate data from different databases? What do you think the solution is to that issue?
One of the solutions is going to take place outside of this committee, and it's going to be the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act, which is going to be discussed hopefully very soon. And here's a great example, Mr. Chairman. I stand before you with a bachelor's degree, and the way that the Department of Education currently tracks graduation rates, I would be considered a college dropout or not reflected in the graduation rate. Why is that? Because IPEDS, which is currently under the Department of Ed, tracks first-time, full-time students that enroll in the fall term. I enrolled in the summer term in a community college, later transferred to a four-year public university. Before that, I was going to school when I was on active duty. So I have transferred between three separate institutions. I am not tracked as graduation rate. The issue I am finding is because of all the things we're talking about that affect military veterans, like post-traumatic stress, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma, all real issues. But now there are media claims that these issues are the reasons that veterans are not succeeding in higher education. We need to make sure that we prove that veterans may be succeeding. And if they're not succeeding, let's find out the reasons why they're not succeeding, as opposed to just making general claims that it could be linked or correlated to issues. And we're not even sure that that's really the reason. So there is anecdotal evidence, and there's research that's been done on non-traditional students, but there needs to be work done on veterans, because what's unique about veterans is that they're highly resilient. And a lot of them have higher education experience. They have credit from military experience, and these things have been accredited by the American Council on Education. So to find out whether they're succeeding or whether they're failing is absolutely critical to defining programs that will help them succeed as we move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Duck. Dr. Smith, the next question is for you. First of all, congratulations on your Washington Monthly rankings. That's very impressive. You spent a little time talking about your suggestions for the implementation of this student complaint form that's required by Public Law 112-249. Can you go into a little bit more detail about what you'd recommend?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, as you noted, the new statute requires the Education Service to build a system or modify a system to publish positive and negative feedback about institutes of higher education on the GI Bill website. I respectfully recommend that the VA develop a standardized set of metrics, perhaps using a web-based portal that military students, affiliated students, could report their experiences on. The results from the web-based survey could be aggregated and reported for categories of institutions along with student response rates, for example. Simply, reporting the number of complaints or cataloging qualitative comments about an instructor or a course are not valid mechanisms for comparing quality across types of institutions. So there really needs to be a standardized set of metrics and an ability for students to report, probably using a web-based survey, and then the ability, as the statute requires, for institutions to be able to respond to that in writing, probably on an annual basis.
Okay, thank you. In the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and turn the questioning over to the ranking member, Mr. Takano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Azari, what are some of the most popular programs at RCCD for veterans?
The most popular programs that we have are some of our vocational programs. We have a nursing program and automotive technology. We also have computer information systems, and those are generally the most popular, as well as the transfer programs.
How much do these programs cost?
The tuition that the state sets is $46 per unit. You'd multiply that by 12 or 15, which would give you a full-time student rate.
Okay, and can you just do the math out loud for me?
Well, that would be 460 plus. It's about $600.
$600
per semester for
per
tuition.
semester, so $1,200 per year, excluding the books. And
Right. Another $500 for books.
Okay. Do these programs lead to licenses, certifications, or other requirements for employment in a specific occupation?
Yes, our Certified Nursing Assistant program does, our nursing program, of course, our Licensed Vocational Nursing program, automotive technology leads to the ASE certification, and Computer Information Systems has many certifications, industry certifications.
And you may not be able to know this off the top of your head, but I just want to ask this to see if you do know. What percentage of your budget do you spend on education versus marketing and recruiting?
Because of the budget reductions that we've had the past few years, we've spent very little on marketing and recruiting. I would say less than 1%.
In the prior years?
In the prior years, we probably spent 3 to 5%.
3 to 5% of your total budget.
Well, when you factor in all of the marketing, all of the brochures, there are many catalogs that we are not mailing. We are producing them only online, so we're saving some money.
Okay. Can you tell us more about the RCC Veterans Resource Center and the services it provides to your students?
We took a classroom and converted it into a resource center. There's a portion of it where we have the coordinator and the counselor, and they provide assistance with VA benefits and counseling and guidance into the academic program, because each student has an educational plan. But there's a portion of the room that is kind of a lounge setting. So there are sofas there. We had a large screen television donated, so students can congregate and they can meet with other veterans. Then we have a study area as well with computers and tables, so students can have study groups.
Does this come from any special funding, or is this something you had to carve out from your budget as a commitment to the
We
veterans?
really had to raise the funds. We carved out a little bit, and we certainly have the funding for the staff. But in order to find the furniture and equipment, we had to raise the funds and got donations from local businesses.
And what are the challenges you face in serving your veteran students, and what suggestions do you have to improve services for veterans, student veterans?
Well, some of them that I suggested had to do with increasing the federal grant opportunities like Title V, and also the portal, the VA's e-benefit portal that will allow colleges to directly input veteran-specific or relevant information. What we would like to see is an opportunity for veterans to have a comprehensive overview of different colleges, so more or less a template. And each college and university would provide the same information. That way students would be able to compare and make informed decisions.
Dr. Smith, do you have any idea of how much your institution spends on education versus recruiting and marketing?
I don't have those figures for you. We spend approximately 2/3 of the budget of the university's budget goes to the academic mission, but I don't know the exact percentage in terms of marketing or recruitment.
Ballpark number?
It would be small in alignment.
Less than 10% or less, you think?
Certainly, yes.
Maybe even closer to 5%?
Probably.
Okay. And do your programs, what's some of your most popular programs for veterans?
Probably numerically, criminal justice is probably our most popular major among our military-affiliated student population. Business is also very popular, and nursing is probably our top three.
And do your programs lead to licenses, certifications, or other requirements for employment in specific occupation areas?
The nursing program certainly does, among those three.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Takano. Ms. Kirkpatrick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Takano. My first question is for each one of the witnesses. In your opinion, what are the top 3 reasons that veterans do not complete their degrees? And we'll start with Dr. Azari.
I would say family obligations and personal problems, not fitting into the college environment, and that's why the Resource Center was so important.
Dr. Smith,
Okay.
and I'll come back with a follow-up question.
I think there's a distinction between the type of military. So for active duty students, many times it's because they're transferred to a different duty station and they find it difficult to transfer credits or simply to attend school given their workload. For veteran students, it's probably not a whole lot different than the general student population. So sure, among our student population, it would be financial reasons, financial concerns, family matters, the need to go and find employment, and the like.
Dr. Dakduk.
Thank you so much, Congresswoman Kirkpatrick, for asking that, because we actually conducted research on this and regarding non-traditional students when we received a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And there are 3 critical areas. Administration. Military veterans have to navigate 2 bureaucracies. The campus bureaucracy that all students have to navigate. Second, the Department of Veterans Affairs and getting their GI Bill benefits. That can deter some folks from actually continuing to succeed if they can't appropriately navigate financial aid, registrar's office, then on top of that finding a central point of contact to navigate GI Bill and getting your benefits. 2, integration. All of our military service members are reintegrating to civilian society. Many are integrating for the very first time onto a college campus. That is a challenge. 3, academics. Remedial training is an issue for a lot of non-traditional students. But consider this, military veterans that are away from the academic environment for 2, 3, 4+ years, 1 or more combat deployments. That is a challenge. Remedial training is absolutely critical. So those are 3, I don't know if you saw some research, but there are 3 areas that are absolutely critical to the success of veterans if we can address them.
Thank you. No, I haven't seen that research, but I'd like to. Maybe we can get that after the hearing. Dr. Azari and Dr. Smith, what are your universities doing to address this problem?
Well, in terms of bureaucracy, we have a coordinator, we have counselors, we have financial aid people who work specifically with the veterans to help them navigate that entire bureaucracy, both at the federal level and at the college level.
And what if they're having family problems?
We do have counseling available for our veterans. We have a counselor who's specifically designated for veterans.
And is that free of charge?
Yes.
Okay. Dr. Smith?
We have a Military Student Success Center on UTEP's campus that's dedicated to our military student population, staffed with well-trained counselors who can help our students navigate both university bureaucracy as well as the military student and VA benefit bureaucracy. It's a one-stop shop. our students all know to go there, essentially located at our library. We can either provide them the services there or connect them with the appropriate services.
Mr. Dakduk, what do you see that we can do as policymakers to address the problem for veterans not completing their degree?
Well, I think the issue is definitely finding out how prevalent dropout rates are, and we don't know. And I respect what the chairman said. There is competing information out there, and there's always going to be that. But I found that that's been an excuse for not tracking anything. And that's the issue I have in higher education. So we need to begin looking at this. The unique thing about our research or the project that we're working on with Department of Veterans Affairs and the National Student Clearinghouse is we're going to track data on 1 million veterans. We're also going to show what degree fields they're majoring in. So now we can start to figure out, what are folks gravitating toward? What degrees and post-secondary credentials are they actually trying to receive? Are those the degrees that lead to valuable post-graduation employment? Do we need to start communicating what's really important? What are the degrees that will lead to long-term success? We can figure those things out. And we can also start to figure out what schools are doing great work that lead to higher graduation rates. I met with Florida State University's president, Eric Barron, and they have persistence rates as high as 88% for military veterans and service members. But he's also made a multi-million-dollar investment in his school to support service members and veterans and their family members. What I have seen in my travels across the country is that higher education universities play a critical role in the transition of military service members and veterans. The community college over here that Dr. Azari leads is an anomaly and a unique example. There are a lot of community colleges that are resource constrained and don't have the financial ability to help them or provide resources and support. We have to make sure that we scale these programs across the spectrum of higher ed.
Thank you all for your testimony today, and I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkpatrick, and I would like to thank each of the participants in panel 1. You're now excused, and I'd like to invite panel 2 to the table. First, we have former Congressman Steve Gunderson, who is testifying on behalf of the Association of Private Sector Colleges and Universities. Following Congressman Gunderson, we will have Dr. Daniel Carey, who is the president of Edgewood College and is testifying on behalf of the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities. And finally, we have Mr. David Boehm, who will testify on behalf of the American Association of Community Colleges. Welcome to each of you. Thank you for your testimony, and we look forward to starting. Congressman Gunderson, you may begin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member, members of the committee. I've actually edited my oral statement to even be more concise, so we'll make it part of the record. We take seriously the charge to work with veteran and military student populations and prepare America's students to succeed in the workforce. As we all strive to provide better information to all of our students, we look forward to continuing to work with the Departments of Veterans Affairs and Education to implement both H.R. 4057 and Executive Order 13607 to ensure that our nation's veterans are receiving all the information needed to make superior education decisions, including improved outreach, transparency, and counseling. Of particular note are the provisions in the executive order that call for additional transparency for veterans. We have long believed that full, accurate, and accessible information enables the veteran to make the appropriate choices for their career future. According to the Veterans Administration, more than 325,000 veterans or their families have been served by our institutions, representing 28% of all veterans using the post-9/11 GI benefits. Although veterans make up less than 10% of our students, we're proud to serve those who choose our institutions. You might ask, why do we serve 13% of all post-secondary students but 28% of all veterans? The answer lies in our customer service to veterans. Returning from duty, most veterans do not want to live in a dorm and take 5 different 3-credit courses at a time. We try to meet them where they are. They want a focused and accelerated delivery of academic programs that can support their transition from the front lines to full-time employment as soon as possible. Because of our longer school days and year-round academic programming, our students can often complete an associate's degree in 18 months or a bachelor's degree in just over 3 years. Executive Order 13607 requires the use of the Department of Education IPEDS data to collect enrollment, graduations, and outcome information. It's a good first step, but as you heard in the first panel, because IPEDS currently counts only first-time, full-time students, no veteran returning to school is counted. We need to change that. Last year, we adopted 5 tenets of veterans education that included the creation of a Blue Ribbon Task Force for military and veterans education. The task force was comprised of a broad group of individuals who share a common commitment toward the education of service members and veterans, including non-APSCU members as well as representatives of the nationally recognized veteran service organizations. The task force created a set of best practice recommendations that are attached to my written testimony. It's important to note that H.R. 4057 and the executive order create a central complaint process to track student issues with institutions of higher education. APSCU supports a managed process for enforcement. Now, before I close my remarks, I would like to share with you some findings of a recent survey of several of our member institutions. We looked at 16,500 veteran graduates and found that 75% earned certificates in associate degrees, while 25% earned BA or graduate degrees. As the questions were just asked in the previous panel, 41% of the veterans earned credentials in the healthcare fields. 20% earned credentials in the skilled trade programs. 10% earned credentials in computer and information programming. Our partnership with veterans is preparing America's skilled workers for the future. This is the partnership we want to continue and we're very proud of. We thank you for the opportunity for the testimony and happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Congressman Gunderson. Dr. Carey, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Takano and other members of the committee, I appreciate having the time to appear before you today to discuss the value of higher ed for our nation's veterans. Edgewood College is a liberal arts Catholic college in the Dominican tradition with just over 3,000 students, undergrad and graduate. Today I represent both my college and the members of the National Association of Independent Colleges and Universities. At the outset, I wanted to commend the committee for highlighting the importance of veterans receiving value for the time and money they put into obtaining a higher education. As an independent college president and former chair of NICU, I welcome that chance to discuss that value with you. I'm also proud of my service as an infantry officer in Vietnam, and I retired as a full colonel in the reserves. The GI Bill changed my life and the lives of countless others, and it continues to do that today. I'm personally committed to seeing that veterans have a positive educational experience both at my institution and at other high-quality colleges. The post-9/11 GI Bill has opened the doors to higher education across the country. I believe the key question before this committee today is how to ensure that veterans get the most out of that GI Bill. The answer lies in the success veteran students are having at schools like Edgewood. What makes us different and why are our students successful? 3 key factors. First, we dedicate the financial and personnel resources to students. Like most nonprofit colleges, Edgewood spends the vast majority of our revenue directly on student education and student services. Second, we focus on teaching with top-notch faculty of PhDs, and most of our students are in small seminars of fewer than 20 students. Like most nonprofit colleges, we push our students to learn, think critically, write effectively, and work in teams. Our students graduate with strong skills to tackle professional careers, and when they graduate, we offer intensive job placement assistance to every student before and after their graduation. Third, Edgewood offers significant student support services. Some veterans need a little extra guidance through their college experience. We have a full-time veteran services coordinator who served in the Army Reserve and the Marine Corps. In response to the request of our veteran students, we are providing a dedicated space for them to meet. We make psychological counseling easy to access and free. We offer personalized academic advising to assist veterans and dependents in determining their course of study. Because of these factors, our enrollment of veterans and dependents at Edgewood has grown dramatically in the past several years. Now, our programs are a lot smaller, but our numbers have tripled and quadrupled from 43 to 145 in the fall and to more than that in the spring. Our graduates are appreciative of the quality education and they find success on the job market. Employers hire our graduates. Colleges can solve the dropout problems and veterans can thrive if colleges make the spending choices to offer an excellent education
dedicated resources, and build a strong sense of community. There are lots of costs involved, and at Edgewood, we've restrained our costs, holding increases below 3.9% in each of the last 3 years, and we participate fully in the Yellow Ribbon program. Now, I've submitted some stories, personal stories of veterans. I'll share just one. Jason Diaz was a student who I got to know quite well, an Iraqi war veteran, inspired to go into nursing while in the military, not a medic, but is able to help keep a wounded comrade alive. While he was a student with us, his wife was expecting twins and his father was struck with terminal cancer. Our campus rallied around. He's now working in the emergency room at the University of Wisconsin Hospital and Clinics. And there's lots of stories like Jason's being repeated across the country, where schools are dedicating revenue to giving students personal attention, counseling, and smaller class sizes. At Edgewood, we're proud of the fact that our cohort default rate stands at 2.5%, well below the national average of 13% and the latest proprietary score rate of 22.7%. And this figure is not due to us having a wealthy student body. In fact, 35% of our current undergraduate students are eligible for Pell Grants. As a veteran, it concerns me that not all of higher education demonstrates a commitment to the success of today's veterans. I'm confident that veterans at our campus and at many other private nonprofit institutions that offer a high-quality education, supportive veteran services, and a strong sense of community, they will be successful. Thank you for the opportunity to share some of these stories with you today.
Dr. Carey, thank you. Mr. Bank. Good morning, Chairman Flores, Ranking Member Takano, and members of the subcommittee. I'm pleased to be here with you today to speak on behalf of the nation's almost 1,200 community colleges on some of the ways that we support veteran students. Our colleges have a long and proud history of serving veteran and active duty students. A survey from 2012 found that nearly 4 out of 5 community colleges already had or were in the process of implementing programs and services specifically designed for service members and veterans. These include professional development for faculty and staff to help them better serve veterans, increasing the number of services directly targeted to these individuals, and establishing web pages specifically tailored to veterans. Many institutions, particularly those with larger veteran populations, are creating dedicated centers on campus where students can congregate and receive tutoring and other services. Many, perhaps most community colleges award academic credit for prior learning experience gained in the military and are refining these efforts to help military and veteran students complete certificates and degrees more rapidly. In addition to these new ways of measuring learning, many colleges have dedicated programs for veteran students to ease the transition from military to civilian student life. Today, many people are asking, is college really worth it? And the unequivocal answer, now more than ever, is absolutely yes. The evidence is overwhelming that the surest path to a family-supporting job is through obtaining a post-secondary degree. However, the choice of a particular college and a particular program at that institution matters greatly. And while policymakers and campus officials are striving to ensure that students have the resources that they need to enable them to choose wisely, further improvement is needed, both in the data that are available and the way that data is consumed. The first principle for community colleges is to remain accessible through low tuitions. Last fall, the average community college tuition and fees for a full-time, full-year student was just $3,131. And this came on the heels of cuts in state funding that drove tuition increases by 24% when adjusted for inflation over the last 5 years. Our tuitions are set by a variety of entities. In most places, they are decided by the individual institution in concert with their board. In other places, the state board sets the tuition, such as in Virginia. And so other states, as you just heard by Dr. Azari, in California, the legislature determines the tuition. In all cases, these decisions are made before the public. Community colleges do frequently charge higher tuitions for out-of-district or out-of-state residents. Out-of-district students pay about 16% more on average than in-district students, and out-of-state students pay about 136% more. The principle is driven by one of equity, and that is that the heavily subsidized tuitions should be provided first and foremost to those who bear the burden of taxes that support those low tuitions. Nevertheless, no community college student actually pays the full cost of their education. On average, our students spend about $12,400 per year per student on education. Unfortunately, funding cuts over the past few years have reduced this amount. The accountability movement, with its emphasis on completion, which this subcommittee is appropriately concerned about, has taken root on community colleges across the country. Our own association has taken a tough look at the progress we have made and the progress that we still need to make with a recent report called Reclaiming the American Dream. We also are launching a voluntary framework for accountability that will help institutions and the public more clearly understand how our institutions are performing, and with the institutions themselves looking towards further improvement. The federal government does have a role here. It can help by ensuring that our colleges receive better quality data. There is no national system, no one system that tracks students throughout post-secondary education, and information on workforce outcomes is spotty, primarily provided through states rather than the federal government. Change in this area is inhibited by political, legal, and bureaucratic obstacles, but there is concerted pressure to provide better information to institutions and students, and we are optimistic that this information will become available in the coming months and years. Thank you for having me here before you this afternoon, and I'll be pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Boehm. I will begin with the questions. The first question is for Congressman Gunderson, and it's this: What steps is the APSCU taking to ensure that your member institutions are implementing the recommendations of the Blue Ribbon Task Force for military and veteran educations? And if they're not, what steps would you like them to take?
So that's a great question, Mr. Chairman. First of all, we are engaged in a very active education and promotion program to all of our members and, frankly, to all of higher education, because we take great pride in that set of recommendations as being one of the better sets of best practice recommendations that are out there. And many of our schools are individually saying that they are going to commit to it and indicate so on their websites and their materials, etc. The second thing that becomes important here is, as you heard from actually the earlier panel in your opening remarks, we get asked if we have automatic enforcement. We're not a regulator, we're an association. But I'll tell you, we are a strong supporter of the complaint system that is being developed at the Veterans Affairs, so that if there are complaints, and if those complaints are disproportionately for our sector, we'll know that we have not succeeded and that we're going to have to take additional steps. So our combination of proactive advocacy and education, combined with what you all are doing through the Bill ORourke's legislation and now the executive order in the implementation of that complaint process, will combine, give us the information to know what those outcomes are.
Okay. Thank you, Congressman Gunderson. Dr. Carey, you had mentioned that one of the reasons for increases in tuition rates is that colleges are now providing more of what are called additional services than they were before. Can you give us a couple of examples of additional services? And secondly, would you agree that in addition to those additional services, the competition among schools to attract students through nicer dormitories and expanded sports programs has also contributed to the rising cost?
In answer to the first question, specifically with veterans, I mentioned that we have about 145 veterans right now, and we have a full-time veterans coordinator, and we have a dedicated space for them to meet, and we have a person in the registrar's office that we train to work specifically, because their financial aid, as you heard earlier, can be a challenge. But we found with that extra attention and somewhat of an extra investment that our retention rate on our veterans has been equal to or above that of our overall student body. So we feel like we are investing extra dollars, but we feel like there's been a payback on that with the success. Mr. Chairman, if you could ask the second part of the question.
Oh, sure. The question was, would you agree that in addition to the additional services that you just talked about, for instance, the cost that you're spending to try to help veterans, that competition to attract students through nicer dormitories and expanded sports programs are also contributing to the rising cost of post-secondary education?
I think there are examples of that, and I think some of that is driven by demand from students today, which is different from when many of us were in college, and so I think there's some validity to that. But I believe that colleges are getting smart about that, and they're not building a lot more climbing walls and palaces for residence halls. We do not do that on our campus. And in fact, as I pointed out, we've controlled with 3.9% being our maximum increase over the last 4 years. So I think all of higher ed must do the same thing, control costs, become more efficient. And so I agree with you, Mr. Chairman, about that.
Thank you, Dr. Carey. Mr. Cano, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Carey, I know that just like RCC, Edgewood has a successful nursing program. Could you briefly tell me about the success of that program?
I say we have the top program in the state of Wisconsin. We have a passage rate, first time of our nursing graduates, the last several years of 94% or higher. And employers are lined up to hire them, and the students, that's one program where we have a waiting list. That's also very popular for our veterans to get into the nursing program.
Can you tell me, does your institution have programmatic accreditation as well as regional accreditation?
We do indeed, and that's just so important, because if not, those students, as they graduate with an accredited degree, they can get the jobs. And if you don't have that accredited degree, you have a challenge.
So you also have regional accreditation. Does that mean that your students can take their credits and transfer?
Absolutely. We're accredited through the Higher Learning Commission and in the different programs. Our teacher ed is through NCATE, our nursing, our music. There's individual accreditations for quite a number of the programs, but the umbrella is the Higher Learning Commission, the North Central, what used to be called the North Central accrediting body.
And what percentage of your budget is devoted to, say, education versus marketing and recruiting?
Well, the direct costs of the academic that we invest per student is just over $12,000 a year. Our tuition is about $24,000 a year. Now, that does not include any administrative costs. That's just everything related to the classroom and academic support. So if that gives you, that's not quite 50% into the direct academic. Our recruiting costs, I don't have that broken out, but it's minimal. We don't have a special recruiter for veterans, for example. We just have our regular admissions office that works with all students.
Okay. Mr. Gunnarsson, could you tell me how many of your association schools do or do not have programmatic accreditation, or do not have regional accreditation?
Obviously, I can't give you that exact number today, but we'll provide that for the record to the best of our ability. We have the bulk of our schools are nationally accredited. Many of those within those individual programs would be programmatically accredited. Some of our schools, as we move more into the BA and master's and postgraduate programs, are obviously pursuing the regional accreditation, but I don't have those exact numbers.
But for undergraduate education that you might offer, so are your schools typically regionally accredited?
No, I would because the bulk of our veterans, 75% of our veterans, as we showed you in that survey, and I think 68% of all of our students are either in certificate and or associate degrees. They are more likely to be accredited by national accreditors than they are regional accreditors.
So what I'm getting at, though, is that those students who are undergraduates in your undergraduate programs, those credits are often not transferable to the regionally accredited institutions. Is that correct?
Unfortunately, that is correct, and we would like to solve that as much as you would.
My question is, on average, how much does your association of schools spend on education versus marketing and recruiting?
Again, the best I can give you on that would probably be some data from the National Association for College Admissions Counseling. In 2011, their data showed that the mean cost per enrolled student among all colleges of higher education was $2,400. For public schools, it was $987. For the private nonprofits, it was $3,042. For us, it's about $3,800. It's a little higher because we obviously don't have the ability to use the high school guidance counselor is an opportunity to access to our students. The vast majority of our students are adult non-traditionals. We have to reach them on the streets, in their workplace, and we have a rough business equivalent, Mr. Takano, of the fact that 1 out of every 100 students who expresses an inquiry actually becomes a student. So it's a very different business model.
my own experience as a high school teacher is that for-profits were very effective at reaching high school students, often deploying recruiters that community colleges could not afford. That's just my own observation. Would you support legislation to limit the legal amount spent on recruiting to arrive at some reasonable maybe limit?
Not the legislation I've seen thus far, because I think that legislation totally ignores the business model and the realities by which we operate. I mean, the reality is that if you're going to tell us that we can't reach the individuals in their place of work, their place of life, et cetera, we're not going to reach those students. And we can redesign, Congressman, our programs in a way that fits traditional higher ed. We're nimble. We're quick. The problem with that is that the students we serve today, many of the students who, in all due respect, would never be accepted at Edgewood College, who loses? It's those students who otherwise have no opportunity for post-secondary education and career skills, which is so critical. 92% of our students fit the non-traditional role with multiple barriers to academic success. The question in America is, are we going to give those students an opportunity for real skills to get real jobs with real incomes?
Mr. Chairman, sorry, my time is up.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Takata. Votes have been called. We have about 9 minutes left in order to wrap this panel up, and also, or actually, I'm going to propose we wrap the hearing up and to get over to the House floor. So, Ms. Kirkpatrick, would you mind if I limited you to about 2 minutes?
Not at all. Not at all. In fact, I was going to self-limit. So my question is for Dr. Carey, and thank you for your service. You talked about Pell Grants in the post-9/11 GI Bill. Do most of your students, can that cover their costs, or do they also have to take out student loans?
Well, for the veterans, they have to take out almost no student loan whatsoever. But for our typical 18-year-old undergrad that is Pell eligible, they would take out a loan. They would get a College Work Study Award. So it would be a combination of financial aid for them.
Okay. And Mr. Bain, do you agree with that most of the veterans can manage just with Pell Grants and the GI Bill?
Absolutely, that's the case. Yes, they're not taking out loans. The figure nationally is about 1/3 of our full-time students take out loans, but very few veterans need to do that.
And Mr. Bain, what do you find is the most requested information when a veteran is deciding whether to go to one of your institutions?
Well, frankly, because the nature of our institutions as being, community colleges, and this is not something that's readily appreciated by many people, the students don't undergo a comprehensive scanning of the environment of all the institutions, even within their state. I mean, they tend to enroll in their local community college. So what we find most important, and I mentioned this in my testimony, is to make sure that we match that individual who is returning from their service and wants to stay at home and be with their family and perhaps even hold down a job at the same time, making sure that they get into the program that suits their abilities and their aptitudes and their future goals best for them. So it's not necessarily, again, between two community colleges or community college and a four-year college, but it's which program at that local institution are they going to choose.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Ms. Kirkpatrick. The second panel is excused with our thanks.
Thank you.
We're going to try something a little different if we can. General Worley, we'll call you to the table for just a moment. What we're going to do is to enter your written testimony into the record and to ask you if we're going to submit written questions to you and ask the VA to follow up. And since you're our neighbor more or less here in Washington, I think that may make some sense. So we'll submit those questions to you a little bit later. So with that said, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and include any extraneous material related to today's hearing. And hearing no objections, so ordered. Finally, I want to announce that next week this subcommittee will be back in action on June 26th at 2 p.m. for a legislative hearing on several bills pending before the subcommittee. I look forward to seeing many of you then, and without objection, this hearing is adjourned.
Steve, good to see you.